Alright, yeah, this is going to be one of those when I use the green screen. How's it going, folks? Jack here. So, earlier this month, I took some time off to visit family for Christmas, and immediately as we drove off, notifications started to flood my inbox, and it was quite concerning. One of them led to me immediately downloading a video as a just-in-case scenario if it turned out that it was a horrible idea, a very bad choice made by the people who posted said video, and they eventually would have to take it down because of embarrassment. The thing that I'm talking about is, of course, the latest update to the marathon situation, which I thought was worth talking about because, just to see how a company that faced so much backlash on their horrible practices, outright theft, and lies had been trying to make amends. But then some exciting updates dropped about the upcoming entry into the Divinity franchise. No original sins included, of course. This one had to do with the genre this game would be and where it would take place in the Divinity timeline. Thanks to embargoes being lifted from sites like jeuxvideogame.com. And also, why did I shift to French there for a second? And Bloomberg, they confirmed that the game would in fact be a turn-based RPG, with them stating that the studio was going to be using a different or rather updated system than the one they used in Divinity Original Sins 2, and that with the experience and knowledge that they had accumulated working on Baldur's Gate 3, they would tighten the experience to make it as compelling as possible. But I know that that's not what you're here for, okay? So let's get into the actual meat and potatoes of this. The true breaking news was that the industry darling and Baldur's Gate 3 developers Larian Studio were not the most beloved studio anymore. And all I had to say about this was, of course, here we go again. Take that quote in mind, it'll be important in a few. Good guy developer number 1, our knight in shining armor, saw a CEO, Sven Vincke, confirm that they are using AI in the development pipeline for their game. Now, I need you to slow your roll, because dislike, and dare I even push it so far as to call it hate, is only truly cool when it targets the mainstream offenders, as clowning on them becomes a second nature as, taking a breath, which of course often means that we show more leniency towards those who generally have done some good. And this is not me making the rules, okay? This is just how the news cycle operates. I don't decide these things. This would of course imply that we actually need to dive deeper into what was actually said. So, Bloomberg, yes, in this very same article where they dropped the news about Divinity's true nature, did this interview via Jason Schreier. Now, Schreier is one of the few journalists who has a 9 out of 10 track record of getting it right, whether it is about reporting on leaks, insider knowledge, corporate misconduct, that kind of jazz. But of course 90% does not make perfect, meaning that the remaining 10 can be what some mimishly like to call game journalism. So naturally, when a reputable source clashes with a beloved company, this is of course going to have a lot of developers, the industry at large, and gamers themselves working hard on that codependency that we all form with each other. So, Vincke didn't talk much about AI in the interview at all. As aforementioned, there was a lot about Divinity itself. They mentioned how they were going to be using an updated engine, which is basically a new one, and how they planned on getting the game done within a span of 3 to 4 years versus the 6 years of development that Baldur's Gate actually ended up having, which only led it to be in open beta. But we'll talk about that later. They also mentioned how they had been working on a Divinity follow-up, but had to shelf it due to meddling from Wizards of the Coast at it again. But, as you would know, a statement about making a game faster in lesser time than a prior major project will immediately make some consider AI involvement. This is of course where the article, to courtesy of Jason Schreier, quotes, "Larian has been pushing hard on generative AI." And to be fair to the people who are quoted here, the quote is from Schreier. on AI use. As he specified, that they are using these to explore ideas, flesh out PowerPoint presentation, develop concept art, and write placeholder text. This is still Jason Schreier. In the very same article are of course quotes from Vincke himself. So not posts from Twitter that are meant to walk back whatever he may have said, where he in fact states the following about AI generated content in Divinity. His citation, "Everything is human actors. We are writing everything ourselves." Now, Vincke admitted that the use of generative AI has led to some pushback at Larian, but he thinks that everyone at the company is okay with the way that they are using it. So, in other words, the core of the argument about the controversy of this is that we don't want to hear stuff like this from a studio like Larian. Because what we associate Larian with is the successful company that got there by putting out a game, and a multitude of games of course. Well, with the most well-known being the one where you can bang a flaming baddie, a GIF, or the whole cast of Bambi. So games built out of love and passion and hard work and executed by the creator's own hands. These are the things they were associated with, which is of course something that Vincke assures that they still do, and even goes so far as to point out that the inclusion of AI has not led to sudden rises in efficiency. Yet, a statement like that still clashes with other stuff that's been said about the game and the studio. This naturally has brought the wrath of many people on the internet, and some started calling Larian slop, some going to the extreme route saying, "I'm gonna go the extreme route here and say that AI concept art is just as bad as in-game assets, not only because creating concept art is such an important job for real artists, but because of the obvious fact that you are not creating anything new. None of your favorite characters in all of gaming were designed by AI. They were designed by humans. A few years from now, when AI concept art has gone all the way through the pipeline for AAA release, it's going to be glaringly obvious, and we are going to have to revisit this topic again." And some, I guess, had a bit more of a measured take, like this one here from Vandersteen saying, "Love how this article proved Gen AI is garbage, pushing hard for it, yet it hasn't actually improved workflow, pushed back by people in the company, but executives are like, no, everyone likes it now because they will lose their job if they don't. So disappointing," from Sven. Of course, lastly, the thing that I personally find more interesting is that some call the response rather mute, as they wouldn't dare to imagine what threads on either Twitter and or Reddit would look like if this was committed by anybody other than Sven. Now, the thing here is that no matter how you look and or try to twist and turn it, when we have discussions about AI, you have got to consider the different standards. I know very few who work into game development, who sometimes give me insider knowledge about certain things, but I can talk confidently about people who work in the fashion world. I have anecdotes about how artists would actually sketch designs on paper and then later on trace it in Illustrator to put it in vector. And now they are just using prompts to do the basic designs and then the necessarily custom adjustment as they are tracing over it again. This is something they deem very useful to quickly churn out a prototype so that they can quickly ask a given client if they can approve of a general concept or not. That before, of course, committing more effort into actually designing the thing that they want to design. And I'm saying this without making any excuses for AI use even from artists, but that's just how businesses have had to develop. But back to the article. To clear any misunderstanding about his involvement in this, Jason Schreier actually posted an extended transcript of the interview on Blue Sky that showed that he didn't in fact make shit up. Vincke, on the other hand, responded to the Divinity backlash, assuring people that they are not replacing anyone nor trimming down teams because of AI. Well, he did state that in an IGN post that I read, but in a better version in his Twitter post, my dude went straightforward. Holy fuck, guys, we're not pushing hard for or replacing concept artists with AI. We have a team of 72 artists, of which 23 are concept artists, and we are hiring more. I'm sorry, I kind of have a little bit of a mix between doing a German and or Swedish accent. The more art they create... I can't do this. God, that sucks. Okay, I'm gonna drop that. The art they create is original and I'm very proud of what they do. I was asked explicitly about concept art and our use of Gen AI. I answered that we use it to explore things. I didn't say we use it to develop concept art. The artists do that, and they indeed are world-class artists. He later on goes on to explain how they are using AI tools to explore references, just like how they would use Google and art books in the past. And this is something that I find a little bit strange because it straight off refutes what was literally transcribed from their interview in the explanation by Jason Schreier. And of course, this very response ended up opening the floodgates to even more discussions about Larians and even people in the past who had had bad experiences in the studio, from like narrative issues to even Jesus Christ, sexual harassment. Yeah, it's been bad. And for me, if we put like Gen AI aside for a little bit, the belief in companies' sainthood is something that I think people really should work on being careful not having all the time, because everybody is fallible and some will disappoint you at some point or another, and even if what they do at a given moment is less bad than what others are doing, because the backlash itself against Larian isn't coming from a point of wanting to like hurt the company or cancel them. I don't believe that. Perhaps, okay, correction. Some bad actors definitely will try to do that. We've seen that in the past. But what I see it as is like a realization that they are in fact a company. Emotional independence is very important because ex-CEO will eventually do something that is super nice and people will praise them for it and even glaze them. And if you would pardon my use of brain rot lingo here just to push the description home, if the glazing is incessant, ex-CEO might develop a sort of immunity from the same problems that affect everybody else. As an example, I mentioned Baldur's Gate 3 being in open beta, okay? We got back to that one. I happened to have gotten the game at that very point when it was in open beta. And while I was one of the many who did defend Larian when there was a massive floodgate of criticism about from some other devs about, oh, what are we supposed to do now? Release all of our games in open beta and our Larian studio now setting the new standard for what an RPG should be. Really? I was more than ready to talk about how broken the game was still on release. Like, I could not finish Act 3 because even on an RTX 3080, entering the city of Baldur's Gate made my PC sound like I was listening to a clowncore soundtrack running at like 15 FPS. Only months later, when they managed to get it all patched up, did I manage to get the type of gameplay that you're seeing on screen right now. Like, I felt like an idiot pointing this out to people, as some will always reply like, you must be tripping. I'm not experiencing any of these issues while they didn't even clear Act 1. This is of course not to excuse the Larian hate at all, but rather to make people understand that when Vincke was standing on, let's say, the stage for the Game Awards, like the knight in actual shining armor, thinking he had the source, judging other studios, he is now facing that very criticism. And while I do agree with many of his points, almost all of them, it's also important to criticize a studio when they need criticism. This is the same as people watching Cyberpunk 2077 being a buggy mess and exclaiming just how much the studio has fallen off since its release. Because, oh no, this game is not running like The Witcher 3, a game that we clearly can all praise is just fucking magnificent this day, was pretty shit at release, and yeah, guess what? The Witcher 3 was very much this way. History just tends to repeat itself, and recency bias takes hold of us as we become unable to cast proper judgment, and I expect the same thing to happen when Divinity will be releasing in 3 to 4 years. Now, I brought this aspect about the morality of the judgment because I think we need to have that set before we actually tackle the wider AI witch hunt that is currently happening.
Whatever you may think, we are not conducting some kind of witch hunt.
Now, I also do realize that you might in fact not care about this at all, because why would you? Because I suppose that some have the tendency of only thinking about these things and taking the stance of the consumer, looking at that perspective only, and that is totally fair. The issue, however, is that even on that front, it's not looking any good. The industry at large is in bad waters at the moment. We are experiencing a tech crash of insane proportion. Listen, these sticks right here will be the new fentanyl, okay? This will cause the new fentanyl crisis, and they'll be passed down in like dark alleys. And Batman, I swear to God, RAM of all sorts is at a premium right now, and the short supplies come from the fact that Nvidia, once a beacon of gaming, has for the nth time reminded us that they are an AI data center infrastructure company first. Yeah, gaming, maybe. There are claims from industry insider that tell us that the RTX 5090 prices could soar up to like $5,000. And of course, even competitors like AMD will follow suit. Mother flipping Asus, from whom I bought the monitors that I will be editing this video on, are currently planning to raise prices for every single thing that they have, not just the critical components. Like, can you imagine CES this year and how it's all going to look like? Yeah. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much. Yeah, shut the fuck up, Sasha. Okay, listen. It's all the same, but more expensive and sloppier. Thank you. Well, how about the RAM manufacturers? Well, they told us that we could go and RAM ourselves, because they don't want to sell to us peasants anymore. And because everything is lacking in RAM now, even the Steam machine, what was supposed to help the consumers, right? The thing that was tuned, especially because of the analysis that they do from the surveys from what gamers usually utilize, is likely going to be more expensive and might not even ship at all, and will lack Half-Life 3. You heard that right. We might not get Half-Life 3 because... Hold on, do I have Life of P installed? Give me a moment. We might not get Half-Life 3 because of bloody clankers. And this is why companies like Valve made it a priority to disclose the use of AI on their platform. Why others like Epic are so frustrated by that, or at least the CEO is. He's a dumbass. And also why it took a lot of people aback that the Game of the Year actually did not mention that he once used AI. Oh shit, did I forget to mention that? As it was not just Larian, but also the very successful and award-winning games like Ark Raiders and Expedition 33 that made use of the technology that both feature cases of machine learning and not actual AI, because if we are to be completely correct, the AI thing that we're talking about is not actually artificial intelligence. From Ark Readers admittedly using it for audio purposes and the random nature of some of their assets that will leave anybody just scratching their heads. When it comes to Expedition 33, one of the most beautiful games of the year, with a meticulously constructed world, a very well-written story, and of course an emotionally impactful experience, and despite even its Unreal Engine-ness, the issue here is this bloody poster. Make this make sense. Because the internet rediscovered that Expedition 33 made use of Gen AI in its development, and it resulted in the Game Awards applying a principle, I guess, and stripping Central Studio of one of the 9 awards, being the Game of the Year award. This case to me is rather fascinating, because what happened was that Expedition 33 released on April 24th, and just 2 days after, some player reached this part of the game, where there is this kind of a fractured carrefour that this post is located at. Some pointed out that the artifacting looked eerily similar to some AI generated like lorem ipsum, and within days the developer actually patched it up and left it looking like this. Now, I remember playing the game like 7 months ago initially, and I was reading through the news posters, as I always do, to find like weird details about certain games, and I didn't notice a thing.
Yeah, been ready.
Conte sirène. Wow, they've been doing that for quite a bit, huh? Elle vous regarde, la peintresse. So the lady is watching you. Oh, bloody hell, this is good! Anyways, let's go. Just as a way to let you know that despite some who actually truly care about this missing details, no matter what you do, no matter how minuscule it might be, someone will notice. This is of course how the game looks right now. And since this was fixed, E33 had gotten nothing but praise until of course the Larian situation happened. This just created a perfect storm with the addition of quotes from the studio, Central Studio here, stated in an article with LPEs, titled, I shit you not, The Low-Cost Creative Revolution, How Technology is Making Art Accessible to Everyone. And a quote that's been making the rounds on the internet is of course the following. They in fact use AI, but not much. They do expand on this in the article, stating that Unreal Engine 5's tools and assets have been very important in improving the graphic, gameplay and cinematics, which of course, coming from a studio that has swept the awards earlier this year, meant that the Gen AI bros were now emboldened to talk and exclaim how Gen AI is here to stay, and oh my god, will they ever stop justifying the use of slop? Like, these are the same people who will say that the car disrupted the horse carriage industry and that photography did the same for painters. Agent 47, don't you fucking dare. So what is the harm of Gen AI? Well, for one, as I remember, horses weren't pretending to be cars. And the second will be that context is missed here, because in the very same cited article, Central Interactive gave some clarification, and this is a quote from the CEO himself. I think we can agree that when it comes to anything creative, our answer is essentially no. With reference to AI usage, it's like taking away all the joy of creating a game. We love making games, we love creating. Creating is one of the most beautiful things people can do. So, when it comes to creation, our answer is a firm no. Nothing in the game will come from AI. We state this clearly. It's a firm no for us. Beyond that, I don't have a former opinion. Science, responsibility, process, and so on. It doesn't matter to me as long as it works. But when it comes to creative things and things that must come from the heart, for us, it means a definite no. This is clearly a case of AI being used as an actual tool for placeholder texture, something that they played with in 2022 and ended up not liking. I, as an AI critic, have played with AI myself and made some community posts that are now in hindsight kind of weird. Yet, I came to a similar conclusion to the likes of Twitter poster here, Nickel, who wrote the following. Over 5 million people played Expedition 33 and only one instance of AI was found. This of course doesn't mean that there aren't more or that there couldn't be found more, but this is clearly not an instance of like malicious intent to cut corners or a company trying to become future-proof by just simply using AI. That's not what was done here. And so intent, morality and all of that comes into play when we have to talk about these things. Like, I had lunch yesterday with an old friend of mine that I hadn't seen in a while from high school, who is a hardware engineer and he's making semiconductor chips and basically carving the high tech that we have today in freaking sand corns. He makes robots, programs, the whole 9 yards, and he has some thoughts about the discussions that they themselves have been having in his office about how the push for AI and the fear of being replaced with AI, which he thinks is not going to happen, like the actual replacement of human beings, yet he thinks that the shift from machine learning to LLMs, the tech itself, has of course been around for quite some time, and the circumstances in which we determine how we may use it is going to be the big discussion. Yeah, it's a huge roundabout way of saying that, yeah, he understands that AI is here to stay, but we need to have regulation on how we use the stuff. And of course, he has some pretty fun example of what happens when we actually release the tools to the public. And the public cannot be trusted to use them. And yes, the word here is circumstance. How indeed circumstantial this will all be. I would prefer not to have any generative AI in my games because like a poet once said.
But just because somebody chose to take a smaller shit in my rice doesn't change the fact that it's still there, inside my bowl, steaming up my Tupperware.
By creating whole hate campaigns like this against people who actually don't stand for AI and are literally anti it, it's really messed up. especially when we need to focus our angers on companies like EA, using Gen AI despite saying that they wouldn't do so just a day after the man who brought the game back from the brink of death decided to go the Paul Walker route. And or how about a Halo studio? Oh my god. Oh my god. That once again goes all in on Gen AI, making it into a core pillar for future game development. What the fuck? Halo is now the poor child that just gets passed down in like a system from family to family. It just gets sicklier and sicklier every single week. And as soon as it founds a family that is willing to give it that sliver of hope, the poor child just gets thrown back into the system. Like, come the fuck on, he's already dead. Look, I'm saying all of this because 2026 is going to be another most likely worst chapter into the AI verse that none of us normies wanted to be plunged into. But alas, here we are, and we're going to have to deal with it. And with that, we are going to be forced to take a stance on what we consider to be art, which in my opinion does not include AI, but hey, how stringent we should be about the usage of this tool and how we can stop it from threatening gaming and then of course the industry at large. Because for a tool that is without a doubt accelerating dis and misinformation, because the good old era of pics and didn't happen no longer exists, and like 90% of said tool's usage is used to generate gooner content. We can laugh, but it is creating quite the damage out there. And thus we cannot just go by the assumption that every studio will have the same responsibility and disclose their usage of this tool like Larian, Embark and Sandfall did. The studios are already eating each other because of this. Just look at EA's Battlefield reproducing the slop from Call of Duty's own slop. What is going on? Or how about running with scissors that was supposed to be making Postal Bullet Parade or Bullet Paradise, and made a thing that was almost entirely AI generated, and actually got mad at the fans and started accusing them from being, I quote, ignorant assholes who keep accusing use of AI. I think I remember that correctly. And they maintained a stand despite having been found out for using AI. So naturally, as the content creator that I am very quick at pointing out the flaws, and I don't have great solutions for this. I'm just honest, okay? You, nor the vast majority of us don't have any power, legally speaking, to have a massive impact, right? That's difficult. Even when we try to get something awesome going on there with, let's say, Stop Killing Games, politicians tried to bar that from going through because of the way that it was phrased. So in terms of actions, the only few things that I can imagine that we should be doing is, one, to get more informed about these things, especially consumer rights, the things that you're supposed to be supporting to help yourself and or the small industry, the indie industry that is around you. And that even if you find it annoying that some of them currently are like grandstanding and claiming that, oh, they don't use AI like Larian and all of the other studios are doing, okay? It might be annoying to you, but they genuinely stand for something good, that we don't propagate a problem. So support indies. I know, this has been said for many years now, but keep doing that. Third, I guess, be better at pointing out the ones that actually do cause harm. And it's not like, listen, you can decide however you want to judge a studio if they end up using AI for a small purpose, and if said things doesn't get included in the final product, and or if you are so crucial as to not even wanting it to be used into a drafting process at all. That is up to you to decide, but focus your anger. And I guess fourth will be, for me, to poison your data, because they're scalping it and training their AI on that, but that's a topic for another video that I actually have planned on for the end of the month. And lastly, just continue the trend that's been going on for years now. Don't buy new titles. Clean up your backlog. And with that trend, newer titles see less relevancy lest they actually break the glass ceiling. Why did I choose that word? Lest they break into the mainstream and get into the cultural zeitgeist. You've likely seen the many reports gamers are not buying new games, and that might just be the thing that might send the greatest message out there. So play your old titles and wait for that one unique title that really stands out and buy that, okay? Yeah, no, I'm done. I think I've been rambling for quite some time, and I think that this video is going to be unnecessarily highly edited just because I like to. And this is kind of like the passion that we want to see in the industry, if you know what I mean. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section, because I may have gotten some points wrong, and or you may have some critiques on what I said. So I'm always here to learn and to be better. So let me know your thoughts. And of course, Happy New Year when we get to that. It's a day away. I'm sorry for being a bit late and not too frequent here on the channel. I needed to take a little bit of a break and to center myself. But great content to come in the next year, and see you guys in the next one. Bye.